So what I'd like to do is guide us through a practice and then reserve a little time at the end so that you could ask some questions about the practice or other questions that you may have. Yeah. So I may guide this practice a little differently than ones that you've done before. So I would just invite you to be curious about this and bring that sense of beginner's mind. I don't know if that's a term that you've utilized here, but it's that idea that every time we come to this practice of mindfulness, and especially through the meditation, that we'd like to have this attitude of curiosity. How am I relating to what's happening? How is my mind at this time right now? So I would just invite you to have a sense of curiosity with this practice, whether you've tried out a compassion practice before, or whether it's something that's purely new to you. And what we're going to do is a practice that involves compassion for other people, which we just spoke about, but also turning that attention back towards ourselves and practicing self-compassion. So you could just take a moment to decide whether you want to gently close your eyes or simply lower your gaze. It's your choice. It can be either thing. If you're not closing your eyes, you may want to find a space a couple feet in front of you to softly rest your gaze. What I find is very helpful at the beginning of a meditation session is to bring your attention into your body and notice if there's any possibility of relaxing in the body any further. So it may be this ability to let your shoulders drop. You might want to bring your attention to the area around your mouth or your jaw and just allow that area to soften. And I always find it helpful to bring the attention to the eyes and see if it's possible, whether your eyes are open or closed, to soften your gaze. Just let your eyes be soft. And then just take another moment to allow your attention to scan through the body and notice any other places where you might move towards a sense of softening. So we don't want to get so soft and relaxed that we're going to fall into sleepiness. So it is a balance. But oftentimes we are holding a lot of tightness and tension in the body that we could let go of. And the reason why this is helpful is that when the body is relaxed, it is a little easier for the mind to begin to quiet. It doesn't mean that we're going to just eradicate thoughts, but it gives a little more possibility of the mind beginning to quiet down. In fact, as we engage in this practice and you notice that you're getting distracted, that you're not paying attention to where I'm inviting you to place your attention, after you've noticed that it's happened, it's often very helpful to just come back and relax the body again. So just taking that extra moment to just see if there's any other places to soften. And then just taking a little time to feel your body in your seat. Just feeling the contact points of the body with the seat. Maybe feeling your feet resting against the ground. And it's just a way right now of bringing our attention into the present, paying attention to something that's happening in the present, which is our bodies, our bodies only happen in the present moment. They don't happen in the future or the past. Our minds may go into the past or the future, but our bodies are right here. So the body always provides this wonderful place to bring your attention as a way of coming into the present moment. And then if it feels okay, what I'd like you to do is to begin to feel your breath. So what I often recommend is bringing your attention to the area of your abdomen as a way of feeling the breath and just feeling what's happening in your belly as you're breathing. You don't have to control your breath. You don't have to make it special or different. But you could just notice what's happening in the abdomen as you're breathing. If for any reason you are someone that the minute you focus on your breath, it doesn't feel so good, which happens to be fairly common, I would just invite you to bring your attention to another anchor of focus, like your hands or your feet or the sounds around you. This isn't about trying to place your attention on something that's just going to make you feel very uncomfortable. And also, if you have an established practice where you rest your attention on your breath, but it's not in the abdomen, it's at the nostrils, for instance, or somewhere else, please feel free to go ahead and engage in the practice with the breath in a way that's comfortable for you. So just feeling the belly as it expands and contracts, or wherever you are with your anchor of focus in the present. Bringing your attention back when it's wandered away. We'll begin to transition into this practice of compassion for another. So what I'd like you to do is to bring to mind somebody that you know, somebody that you have an easy time with, that's having a hard time right now. So the hard time could be a health issue, they're having trouble with a relationship, they're having difficulty in school, there's a job issue. It really could be anything, but just bringing to mind someone that you know is struggling in some way, that's having a difficult time. If you can, you might want to bring up an image of them or just something that makes you feel connected to them. And just taking a moment to think about whatever it is that's hard for them right now. And then just giving a little thought to just wanting them to have a little relief. If it's somebody that you care about and have an easy time with, then generally we want them to feel okay. So another thing to point out with this practice is that it is a practice that allows us to have some thoughts, and that you're not supposed to feel anything while you're doing this. You might feel something as we're practicing, but that is not what we need to have happen. We're just kind of allowing our mind to tend towards this other person. Our thoughts are going to them, and we may or may not feel anything. So as you think about wanting them to be relieved of whatever the situation is, have it be diminished, You could actually, if you want to, you could just stop there, or you could think of a thought that you, in your mind, just want to send to them. Like, I know you're having a hard time. I hope that things will go a little easier for you. So it's just bringing this person up in our minds, thinking about their difficulty, and then just having the thought that we want them to be relieved of whatever it is. May you be relieved of this difficult situation. Then you could also say something like, I have compassion for you, or I want to have compassion for you. May I have compassion for you? And you can just kind of play around with that as we're engaged in this meditation and see what feels right for you. If you're distracted again and again, just coming back to where I'm inviting you to place your attention. And then just taking a little moment to kind of notice, be aware of how that part of the practice was for you. Did it feel challenging? Did it feel fairly easy? Did you feel very distracted? And just knowing that however it went for you is okay. And then we'll just take a moment to come back to the breath. Maybe take a moment to notice whether you need to relax your body again. And then we'll begin to turn our attention inward towards ourselves. So what I'd like you to do is to think about something that's a little challenging for you right now. It could have been something that happened today, yesterday, in the last couple days. And again, it could be just the super ordinary, like you got stuck in traffic, or you didn't have enough time to complete your reading for your classes. It could be that you're just hungry right now. So it doesn't have to be the most challenging, difficult issue that you're confronting. In fact, it's almost better if it's not. But just taking a moment to sit with something that's been hard or is hard for you right now. And then just taking that moment to think to yourself, I'd like this difficulty to go away or be different. I'd like to be relieved of this difficulty. You can even say it as a phrase to yourself like that. And then, may I have compassion for myself, or I'd like to have compassion for myself. I'd like to just have this attitude of being easier on myself with this issue and not be self-condemning or critical that I'm in this situation. May I have compassion for myself. And then you can gently come back to your breath, letting go of whatever the thoughts are. Also just taking a moment to kind of notice how that was for you, knowing that however it was is okay. And we'll just take the last couple moments just being with the breath, being right here in the present. You can take whatever time you need to open your eyes or lift your gaze. for anyone to share any observations that they had about that practice, any difficulties, any questions, or questions about something else related to compassion or to mindfulness in general. So it can really take the form of any of that. Can you tell me your name?
Jonathan. So we did a practice at the beginning of class, and I actually made a comment to Professor Rogers that I struggled more with that practice than I do with the ones at home or even at work where there's people around but not directly near me. And then same practice. I don't know if it's maybe because you were guiding a little more, because Professor Rogers would guide and then he'd leave like a little gap, and then you were kind of more consistent throughout the whole time. I felt a lot more focused, and then I didn't have that judgment that I mentioned earlier where, am I doing this wrong? It doesn't feel as like calming as I do at work. This practice I felt a lot more focused, a lot more centered, and there was moments where I'd open my eyes and get a little distracted, but I would focus. At the beginning you said the thing about the eyes and your jaw. I don't know why I just latched onto those two things. When I get distracted I would think like just relax your eyes and your jaw. And I was able to let go of the judgment. I kind of recognized I was having it, and didn't let it kind of snowball and throw the whole 10 minutes off.
So, well, thank you for sharing that. Every time we sit to do this, it's different. So, and it's just, our minds come to the practice at that time, and it is whatever it is. And I just find what's helpful is to begin to figure out what feels supportive for you. I know I was talking a lot during that practice, more so than I normally do when I guide things, because I think it is really helpful to have a little space where nobody's talking. And there may be many of you that were thinking, when is she going to stop talking? I want to have that little space. So somebody else could have had an opposite feeling to what you experienced. But I think the point is that as you go on in this practice, and hopefully you will, that you'll figure out what feels right for you. And that, maybe right now, having a little more guiding just feels supportive. And, but maybe that'll change. And so it's just having that ability to notice how are we relating to what's happening. And certainly being able to turn down the volume on the judgment of how I'm doing. To me, if that can be something to practice with and let go of, I believe that your practice will unfold so beautifully and wonderfully and easily, because it'll just allow things to happen, and that won't be something that becomes a distraction, because the self-judgment just ends up becoming a distraction. So, kind of paying attention to that aspect of it really can be so helpful in terms of just feeling this freedom to allow the practice to go however it goes. And great that you were able to have a little relief from the judgment. Yes, hi. What's your name?
I'm Tatiana. Thanks for being here. Nice to meet you. There was one part of the reading, and it also goes to what we were just talking about. So this practice today made me realize that when the self-judgment come into mind, when I'm busy working or studying or doing something, I usually kind of like, I've become attached to the idea that they're just passing through. So I'm like, okay, there's a judgment, I'm gonna let it go. Mm-hmm. But then with this practice, I was actually trying to sit on this idea about how impatient I can be with myself. Like, oh, I have a deadline or I have a project and I should be working on it. And then sometimes I tell myself a story about, oh, I'm too tired. And part of the reading, it said something about Lucy, who was like a purchaser for a clothing store. And in one of the readings, she's having this conversation with herself when she's saying, why can't I make a decision? Like, I can't even think straight. What's wrong with me? Mm-hmm. And these thoughts do rise, and I found it challenging with the practice today because I was sitting on one of those thoughts and I wanted to let it go. But your guidance was like, let's sit on it, like feel it first before you really release it. Mm-hmm. And I realized how unpleasant it is.
Yeah.
But if they come and rise into my mind, they are unpleasant and they're making me feel a certain way. But because I'm so quick to dismiss it, I don't even notice that they are making me feel bad. So doing through this practice, it was kind of challenging and recognizing, okay, these things happen and happen so quickly, and they just rise without me noticing it.
So, and it's so true. I mean, there's so much that can go on almost without our awareness in our minds of, like, you know, these self-critical thoughts or worry thoughts or whatever. But the truth is that we can't change anything that we're not aware of. I mean, how can we do that? You know, we have to become aware of whatever it is to be able to take some action and do it differently. And that, you know, concept really expands to anything. But yeah, it can be really unpleasant to notice, you know, what is coming up or how self-critical we are or what kinds of worry thoughts we're having. But then we have this tool and this practice that enables us to be a little easier on ourselves. And also, which I think is really important, when things are coming up in your mind while you're meditating or you're having some bodily sensation that's really uncomfortable, you always have this choice to turn your attention toward the uncomfortable, the unpleasant, the painful, or to say it's too much for me right now and I've noticed it and working with it anymore is really not going to be valuable for me, and for right now I need to turn my attention somewhere else. So you can become aware of something that's unpleasant and decide that I just don't want to notice that right now. I do notice it, but I don't want to continue to be with it. And so I think that we need to give ourselves that freedom to make that choice of turning towards the uncomfortable, unpleasant, and knowing that there's times when we just can't be there.
All right, so I'm so glad we have this time together. Remember the line from Carol Burnett? I just can't. I'm so glad we have this time
I
together.
can't sing it.
They have no idea what they're talking about. But I am so glad we've had this time together. Thank you very much. The compassion practice, which you've introduced to us so wonderfully, will be something that we continue to explore, both in terms of compassion practices, the love and kindness practice that we've begun to touch on. You might have noticed a connection, wishing kindness, wishing relief for somebody else and for oneself connects up to this a little bit as well as self-compassion. So you've really opened us to the continuing of our journey in a very thoughtful and inspired way. So thank you for that. A round of applause.
Very nice. Very nice.